The wellness industry, Joel, what the fuck is going on there? Why are we seeing people who were tediously promoting weirdo diets a few years ago have now got the 500-yard stare of the dangerously pilled Colster?
Yeah, it is a little bit like that. One of the things that's truly boggled my mind over the past year and a bit is the bizarre crossover with the New Age and wellness communities and the Q-Anon conspiracy universe and, sort of wider misinformation galaxy. It's often known as conspirituality, which is this sort of right-wing lunacy that has invaded spaces like yoga, fitness, and health, especially on the more vapid of the social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok, where everything's about image and lots of really soft appeals to conspiratorial thinking. Now, I come from a New Agey background. As a kid, my upbringing was surrounded by eccentric characters of like sort of New Age schools of thought. We used to discuss conspiracy theories and alternate approaches to health all the time. Total matter of course. I grew up with a fairly healthy skepticism toward big pharma and conventional medicine, multinational companies, government in general, and I still hold a lot of these beliefs today, and for fairly good reason. For-profit healthcare can turn seriously
Leave big
bad.
pharma alone, Joel. Jesus Christ.
I know, but thalidomide, Vioxx, come on. They fuck up sometimes, and it's naughty because it's that thing of if you've got something and you want to make money out of it, maybe you don't need to be too careful about it. And I know, and we've spoken about this before, they do miracles.
Yeah.
But they also,
Vioxx,
some of the suits can be a little bit silly. Now, this can be a bit of an unpopular opinion in a lot of spaces because it becomes a polarized issue. You either love big pharma or you hate big pharma. I sit in the middle. But I do think there is a space for alternative health options. I think people piss on homeopathics too much. And I believe that there are holistic approaches to health, just like fucking Pete Evans does say, including a good diet and exercise, which are far better options than just perpetually medicating conditions that arise from things like food allergies. I think
most medicos would support that too. I mean,
that's true.
Most medicos would support all that stuff too.
Yeah, no, you would say so as well. But it's just one of those things where it feels like just being healthy seems like a bit of a no-brainer, and then going from there. But
and it's common knowledge.
Yeah, and that's the backstory. But here's the catch. The fucking moment you start using disinformation campaigns to push your alternative health therapies in some sort of anti-vax bubble of nonsense, using just complete fucking lies and just generally just grifting people, you're dead to me. Now, I can see why people were seduced by the amount of exposure that spreading QAnon conspiracy theories gave them and their businesses in the alt health space on places like Instagram, where all of a sudden they're getting all these likes and people are clicking on their fucking supplement website and they've got a lot of money because that is a lucrative path to follow. But if this is how you want to make money, your credibility is dead. Listening to stories of families being ripped apart by delusional fantasies brought on by a participatory conspiracy universe are heartbreaking. This ruins lives. And this is how you feel compelled to sell your fucking magic health pills for a few bucks above retail. There is a special place in hell for you. I've got no fucking time for you whatsoever. At all.
I've often wondered with this stuff, when you do have these sort of miracle type, miracle pills, miracle cures, these sorts of things. There's always been that, role of snake or salesman. But this day and age, a lot of these things must be skating so close to the wind of fraud, obtain financial advantage by deception.
It'd be interesting to see it done like that.
That's a whole other issue. That basically fraud's not properly investigated in this country unless it's worth millions. So really, because of police resources, a lot of this stuff just doesn't get looked at.
It's quite difficult.
People are making outrageous claims about essentially placebo treatments.
Yeah, and it's really tricky because when it comes down to it, if it's harmless, it's harmless, and it is what it is. But when you make these crazy claims, you're skating too close. You're skating way too close. And look, while I get the mistrust of big pharma, and wellness types have always had this idea that big pharma should be seen at through, a bit of a squint. There's a huge fucking difference between this idea that pharmaceutical companies within a capitalist realm can play silly buggers to increase stock value, and believing batshit theories about fucking Dan Andrews keeping kids in tunnels underneath Melbourne. Or, of course, they fucking go to soft sit shit. Like Australia's a fucking corporation and you could talk your way out of speeding fines with pseudo-legal gibberish. Like, where'd that come from? That's left
Yeah,
field.
and we've just seen this change over really 5, almost 10 years ago. You know, that basically you've got a wellness industry that sort of offered weird diets and so forth. You know, with various health claims attached.
Yeah.
To now sort of full cult bizarre behaviour.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, you know, I think basically, yes, we've seen a lot of these sort of influencers, senior influencers, like people like Pete Evans, actually, who
Yeah.
have driven this, but they're not at the top of the
It
hierarchy.
doesn't feel like it.
No, it certainly doesn't. You know,
Certainly
this
not
is
Pete Evans.
almost a psyop. You know, that this is basically a method of brainwashing people,
Feels like it.
and the work is sort of half done because these people are. You know, people in the wellness industry are sort of willing skeptics, you know.
And they're just riding the coattails of what could be a effort to destabilize trust in Western institutions by malicious actors using the internet to essentially stage a giant psyop to, pursue, government ends.
All for profit. Yeah, all for profit in some form or other. Either it's an economic one or a political one.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, back in
It's not. It's like we're being conspiratorial here, but
yeah, but look, back in the day, I mean, I know friends who, you know, started doing yoga, and then, you know, 2 years later they're wandering off to Indian ashrams,
yeah,
and handing over a fair bit of dough when
Yes.
they go. So this is a fairly common thing, but yoga's even gone crazier since then.
Yeah, yoga's gone batshit. Like the Conspirituality podcast really covers this really well because those guys are really in that sort of vibe. But yoga's always had these cult-like vibes with these ashrams. You're saying, like they go there and they sign off their estate to these lunatic fucking yogis.
I know where it's
happening. All these gronks will do this sort of thing. My mum did the same sort of thing in India, but luckily she didn't, give all of them. Well, whatever she had at the time, not a lot. But like, essentially, this is this thing. Like, you've got these yoga spaces online. They heavily valorize attractive leaders in the field. And this is the kind of thing that's really like makes them quite vulnerable to an attractive grifter who will just come and say the right thing and, open the door or open the wallet. But seeking enlightenment from a con man is something we're all used to. People have been doing it for years. It's totally a part of the yoga canon, and it's fine. I don't know. Fine. Do your thing. If you want to sign off your kid's inheritance to some whack job in fuck India, all power to you. But then you see these people sharing memes about trans people not being valid and whinging about like right-wing tropes like cancel culture, like as if it's almost like they're not even sharing it, thinking about it. They're just in this space. How do people in yoga wind up in this space? I mean, like, it would be really difficult to be a yoga teacher right now.
Basically, at the pointy end of right wing politics, at the real extreme end of right wing politics.
Yeah, it's like it's really in the jungle, and like I just find it really difficult the idea that you could be a yoga teacher who's not pilled and having to dodge lunatics at class. They're coming in and they're wearing giant t-shirts saying like, I'll get a vaccine over my dead body and things like that. And you've just got to learn how to avoid conversations about Bill Gates. It's like almost like they should be a module at yoga teacher school, which is like avoiding conversations about pilled nonsense. And like, so if you've got pilled people in your class, here is how you deal with them. Because otherwise, like, you're a pariah for not being a fucking lunatic. Yeah, I just think it's nuts. And look, I've got no issue with yoga. I think yoga is really like a positive discipline. I think it can be really impressive when you see someone like just casually stretch their fucking leg over their head.
At face value, it's a very good way of maintaining flexibility and fitness.
Yeah, mindfulness as well. You can go in there and lose yourself for an hour in the class. It's great.
Well, there's all sorts of benefits to this thing. So we're not anti-yoga, but basically what we've seen in the last few years is that if you go to a yoga class, you may well be in the contact of people who've got some very strange views, straight out cult views of the world.
Which is this cycle of the internet feeding reality as well.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that's like just like bizarre because it seems like yoga is being weaponized for political gain. And that's something I never really thought I'd say. And they couldn't give a fucking Viparyasa shaped shit about yoga. They just want to recruit people into their ideological cult. And when they
It's a
get them
grift.
there, they either sell them things or they just
Yeah.
use them for political sway for things like,
Yep.
for example, sovereign citizen movements, where they get all these fucking wellness kids to send letters to Parliament saying, I do not consent to your laws, using all this alternate fucking constitutional language. I
Yeah.
mean, they didn't find that on their own. They were directed to it.
Yeah, look, that's absolutely right. So you do have this almost a conflict in our ideologies, but that's where it's happening, and it's all based around that these people are not into authority figures. They are mistrustful of government. They are, and that's a starting point. That's a starting point. If you're flogging Nazism, or if you're flogging the soft sit movement, these people become easily pilled, and this is why these people are always going to be steadfast against whatever G is coming to a phone near you, and they've been convinced that mobiles will kill us all since they first came out. They're always going to be vaccine hesitant, and a lot of them are going to think the Illuminati is a thing. Because of that general skepticism, and that is something that they all share. A good chunk of them go down this sort of lunatic fringe way. They're fringe by default.
They're very vulnerable to it.
It's a way of life for them. But seeing these people turn into fucking sovsits just seems really, really fucking odd. And MLM grifters, you can see that. The rules are reptiles, sure, but constitutional law scholars, and yoga, fuck off.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. The mix doesn't make any sense. Now, one thing that I think does make sense is the way in which the conspirituality tends to target women.
Yes.
And it turns out this is a perfect fertile ground, no pun intended, because women have a great reason to be skeptical of medicine, because doctors often, in the 5 minutes that they see them, dismiss conditions like endometriosis as some sort of bullshit made-up health problem. It's a bad period. Go home, do the dishes, fuck off. And I'm not discounting doctors. Doctors are wonderful people, but a lot of people have very difficult relationships in the conventional medicine field when there's not a lot of listening going on.
They either don't have them, that is the relationship with a GP, or
like a stable GP,
or they do have one, and it can be a skeptical one. It's not.
It's really difficult. Once you get a good doctor, it's amazing. I've got a great doctor, and I just absolutely adore this guy. He calls me fat all the time, and I'm like, finally, someone's holding me to account. But he's really, really good and very attentive. I remember the first time I went to him, I went in there to get a sick note for university many years ago, and he checked all my shit. I'm like, why are you checking me? Why aren't you just giving me a note and telling me to piss off? He's like, well, I want to check if you're okay. It's like, you care? And it was great.
No, look, it's absolutely right. And that's just tremendous advice. If you don't have if you don't have a GP you're satisfied with, just in terms of your overall treatment, then go and find someone who is.
And they definitely exist.
They certainly do, and that changes things a lot. So look, I do get the idea that a lot of this sort of skepticism comes from perhaps failures in medical science,
and capitalistic medicine as well.
The administration of it,
administration, yes. Churn. It's hard. So if you get a nice little place, sometimes you got to pay for it, but sometimes you don't. My doctor, who I love, he bulk bills.
Mine too.
I adore the guy.
Mine too.
Yeah.
And
I spent way too long in there.
Looked after me post surgery. Did a whole lot of very good things to me. So I obviously keep seeing him. But the real thing that has absolutely astounded me is these people are now ultra conservative. So you've got
it's weird.
Yoga influencers who are really extreme right. And it's just, you could not have foreseen this happening years ago. The yoga influencers are actively campaigning for Republican candidates in the USA, and we're all meant to see this as, normal. It's not fucking normal.
No,
the Q-Anon shaman is another example of this. We talked about him last week, looking at 28 years. Poor bugger.
Bastard.
Fuck him. Anyway, staunch Republican.
Love your mum.
Why would he be a staunch Republican?
It makes no sense.
There's no fucking rationale for this. The fucking lunatic calls himself a shaman. He practices weird woo rituals, that he probably found on the internet, and in the same breath talks
likely.
about God and his love for the Constitution and the Founding Fathers. It just doesn't make any sense. These things do not add up. They are not related. They are not the same. And yet here we are, all these neatly packaged into one cooked idiot. And just one of millions, by the way. He famously had his mum petition a judge to get him organic food in jail because apparently if he doesn't eat organic food, he gets very sick. It's bullshit. You can't get sick that way. Yeah. This is obviously all in bullshit. His head. But who put it there? How did this eccentric character turn into such a confused, bewildered nutcase and find himself in a federal prison for his trouble? And we also see this in our mate Pete Evans. While he's always been a bit of a Fruit Loop, he never really showed signs of actual fascism until he did. But he isn't starting the trend on this. He's just following it.
Yeah, he just shares shit. I mean, like, old Pete, he's not a thought leader. A lot of the stuff that he posts online are direct shares and no commentary. He started commenting more, but this is the thing. The trend he's following is this insidious one that has seen people expressing horrific transphobic views on a post that then signs off with some bullshit fucking platitude like love and light or namaste.
Peace and love. Peace.
Yeah. You don't get to say that after demonizing someone. You just can't do that. You know?
Well, they do. Like they do it all the time.
They do. It's disgusting.
It's almost just sort of passive-aggressive thing where they just spat out a sentence of hatred and then go, peace and love, everybody. I mean, it's just fucking like crazy. You
a trans woman a freak, or you insinuate that, like, you know, Michelle Obama has a dick, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, but we love everyone. Well, you don't love her.
Love you guys.
Yeah, you fucking lunatic. So look, that sort of shit just absolutely drives me up the wall. If you are going to be intolerant, I'm sorry, you don't get love and light anymore. That's out. We don't say love and light at the end of our fucking podcast after railing on people for an hour. Like, you know,
we have no love.
We engage in professional cynicism and we're fucking honest about it. Like, you know, we're not here to bullshit you and make you think that we're going to give you a big hug. This podcast is often an hour-long punch in the face, but, like, we're not going to dress it up in pink clothing. I mean, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
It's very frustrating. Very frustrating indeed.
Yeah. It's
well, look, wellness types, this is the other thing, you know, have priced people on low incomes out of the cult. I mean, people on low incomes aren't susceptible now because unless they've got a lot of disposable income, that is, they're out of the market. You know, you rarely see a overhyped overhyped supplement spruiked by some new age grifter and say, "Gee, he's charging a reasonable price there."
It's a bargain. Yep, that's reasonable.
Green smoothies only really work if they're expensive. The meat better be organic. You know, $50 a kilo for chicken breasts, or you're doomed to be riddled with cancerous growths. I mean, where does this? What place? What fucking planet in the fucking solar system, or indeed the fucking known universe, does this kind of shit make sense?
And the thing that really shits me with this is there's this weird thing, and this is something that gives a little bit of resonance to the idea of these guys in this sort of conspirituality sense of being Republicans, of being the right wing, is that if you don't have the money to buy a $50 kilo chicken breast, and we pulled that figure out of our asses, but, you know, expensive produce of the highest organic order, then it's almost like you deserve the cancerous growths. You brought this upon yourself. You know, we gave you the way forward, and you didn't listen to us, you know?
Yeah.
And Pete Evans is accused regularly of doing this. You know, like, why can't you spend this money on food? And it's like, you know, a lot of these people who are in the wellness space, they're not famous for being clever or successful, and they can't afford to get fucking organic produce. And when a health issue comes up, there's this entire culture around them which says this is your fault for being poor. You should have worked harder, or whatever, or your parents should have given you more money, or however you're meant to get your hands on some organic kale. And it's your fault. And that really resonates with that individualistic, atomized approach that the Republicans take. And it's the one thing with this ridiculous way of thinking that makes a bit of sense. And, you know, but what happens here is that this whole thing just gets bred by the internet and the way it works. And the internet, the currency of the internet is attention. It's likes, it's shares, it's viral marketing, and almost any modern phenomenon at this point can, like, especially in this sort of space, can be back to some insecure grifter or some sort of like, entrepreneur who's posting shit for internet likes. And this is how they get their business. This is how they get their things. There's people who do this for a living. And
Grifters.
Most of them are. Some of them do it in a sort of valid sense of just being a part of the bloody, the marketing hemisphere. But realistically, the most common thing about trying to get shares, trying to get likes, is there's a grift attached to it. Now, often, like an anti-vaxxer meme or something like that, they'll have more shares than likes or comments, which is just crazy, because when it comes down to the way in which that translates into virality, there's exponential growth there. And that kind of viral social media is currency. And that currency is valuable when it's tied to a product. And they're getting better at doing this. And at first, it was more of just the endorphin rush of just getting your message out there and feeling like you're pilling people. But now there's always something attached to the message.
It's always been like that.
There's always a catalog, like in there. And this is why they'll have some ridiculous claim about vaccines. And then there'll be a text link in their fucking...
name names. Joe, come here. Come on, spit them out.
Who we David got? Avocado fucking Wolf. David Avocado Wolf is just the absolute worst at doing this. But we'll come to him in a second. Basically, one of the things like that we need to just sort of slip in the side here is just a nod to Pastel Q. And this is Mark Argentino, who's a well-known Q researcher. He came up with this idea of this sort of Pastel Q, and it's pastel colors Q. This is where all the Save the Children shit comes from. It would be remiss not to mention this in this part of the episode, because this is where a lot of people in the yoga and wellness space find themselves falling down the rabbit hole. And they make it very vague. They invite you to look at a certain thing about saving kids. And people think, oh, well, saving kids is noble. We better do that. And then YouTube just throws you down a dark tunnel of shit. And all the algorithm just absolutely just serves you up slop in a trough. And these people just eat it up because... for some reason, they're skeptical of Western institutions, but some random guy with a webcam, that's got to be fucking legit. So Instagram influencers being brilliant at marketing, seeing an opportunity when they found their likes just went up exponentially when they mentioned conspiratorial stuff, they dress these things up in these pretty colors. They post these quotes about the children with clouds in the background, these inspirational pictures. And these gives the reader these like feelings of being a hero. There's this excitement. Posting things about saving the children is absolutely perfect because you can't oppose it without looking like a prick. I mean, how can you be against saving the children?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with you? And it works. It works really well.
Pro-pedophilia? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then the rabbit hole. Then the rabbit hole comes in. From there, the logical next step, especially on Instagram, Instagram is a huge place for marketers. It's one of the most marketing-friendly social media platforms out there. The logical next step is product endorsements and other social media grifts, of course. But the main thing is product endorsements, and so many of them are things like supplements. And this is where people like David Avocado Wolf, pioneers of this. His Telegram is fascinating because what he'll do, and I mean, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but I really like the poetry in it, where he will post a lot of stuff, really right-leaning stuff, but really inflammatory, nasty stuff. Vaccine passports are coming. Vaccines will kill you. Your life is in threat. Everyone's trying to harm you. Bill Gates is going to sterilize your children. And then he'll sell you like a CBD supplement, which is going to calm down your anxiety. Oh, gee, Dave, where'd they get this anxiety from? How'd that happen?
I was really on it. I was really on edge there, Dave. But these $50 a pill fucking treatments have made me feel a lot calmer.
Yes, until I read your next fucking Telegram spiel.
And then I'm terrified again. Reach for another. It's
exactly.
It's a cycle.
It's ridiculous. Because you've got this thing of like, people saying horrifying things about child abuse, about Bill Gates trying to basically take over the world, about vaccines poisoning you, about things in the drinking water, about chemtrails above you poisoning you. There's all these things about fear, but then they'll say things like, "Oh, we choose faith over fear here. We have hope." That's bullshit. You make up sexually violent fairy tales to scare the shit out of people, and then you sell them anti-anxiety medicine that may or may not work. I mean, fuck you.
Very own Rafa Fernandez has done this very well. He's a regular speaker at anti-lockdown rallies and a general internet pest. He's good at riling people up about 5G and COVID-19, blah, blah, blah. And surprise, surprise, sells some bullshit stone called shungite.
Yeah.
which of course protects you from 5G. Oh, thank
Of course
God
it
for
does.
that. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you'd be gone.
Yeah.
So it works though because 5G isn't harmful. Yeah,
So
of course.
it works by
If you
default.
buy, yeah, that's right. There's nothing wrong with 5G, but he's selling stuff that will cure you of what's ailing you.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely sure what he's doing is illegal, but the declawed, defanged cat, the TGA, seems to do fuck all about it.
Yeah.
Therapeutic Goods Administration. I mean, they
Yeah.
did crack down hard, but you've really got to make complaints. This is the thing.
Yeah.
You've actually got to let them know. Then they're really, again, not a policing body. They are in a way, but they're not an investigative body, is probably what I should
Yeah.
say. And
And
so
like Pete
that's
Evans'
why.
biocharger fine was as much as he'd made on the biocharger. He broke even on the fine.
Yeah, look, I understand it, but at the same time, the reason the TJA acted is because they became aware of it, and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
became
They need to be
aware of it from
reported upon. Yeah.
complaints. So where you
Yeah.
do have, don't be frightened of contacting the TJA and making a complaint where these things occur.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice. Like, I tell you what, TGA, anyone from the TGA is listening, give me a call. I'll provide you with whatever you want to fucking know. I will do that absolutely free of charge, just for the love of it.
Yes, look, the TGA is basically it's their own FDA, if you like.
Yes, as such, and they're quite harsh too.
And really, it's basically they will follow up claims, but they can't basically be expected to find them because they're not an investigative body. They can only act on information that they've received. So yeah, it's good. It's a good idea. It was great to see Pete Evans. I mean, you say he probably made money out of the weird lamp anyway, but he made at least 25 grand because the TGA got involved and fined him.
And look, it was a good statement saying we're not going to stand for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think is a fertile ground for grifters, and I'm sure this is being done. I know a lot of QAnon guys ask for Bitcoin, but when it comes to Bitcoin, there's a lot of things like, basically scams where you buy a Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin doesn't actually exist, and they rely on their own trading mechanisms. And at the end of the day, it's a Ponzi scheme. And if they go bust, they just go bust, and your money's just gone.
No, that's true.
I haven't seen a lot of this happening yet, but I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen a lot.
Yeah, it could kick off. I mean, look, the first element is the tax evasion one. They're obviously not paying tax on sales and these sorts of things. They figure, because they're not very bright, they figure they can cover this up with Bitcoin.
And they say it's all on the ledger, but like your wallet is not public information unless you make it public information. So as we've discussed in other episodes, the only way people know that your Bitcoin wallet is yours is when you're putting it all over the internet asking for money. But all you need to do is to make another Bitcoin wallet, which you use that you don't tell people about on the fucking internet. And yes, it is anonymous then.
Don't tell people. Don't tell people your wallet number. Yes.
I've not been telling you guys this. I'm giving you the keys to a fucking grift. But like, this is the thing I think will be the next thing to look at, which is going to be, because JP Sears, just the most unfunny shit comedian. Well, it's an investment mechanism. So JP Sears and Pete Evans both spruik Bitcoin in a really big way. It's a political statement against fiat currency. Pete's still learning what that is. But essentially, it appreciates in value. It's a political statement against the government. And it's also one of those things where you can discuss yet another anti-establishment thing and have people look into it. It's got that sort of searchability. It's got that hotness.
There's all that benefit, of course, but it's fundamentally about making the money black straight away.
Yeah. And a lot of Pete's supporters have been saying that. And he recently had a Telegram post saying, I think you've got the wrong idea about Bitcoin. And it's like, well, actually, no. All that, child trafficking you say you don't like, Bitcoin. Champion. It's all underpinned by Bitcoin. There's tons of cash. Obviously, there's still lots of US dollars involved and things like that. But the thing that makes selling kiddie porn real easy, Bitcoin. That's what makes
exactly right.
That's what makes it
exactly right because it's the currency.
Go around.
It's the currency of the black market, and that's right. So yes, these people are just jumping on that, and that's the whole idea, An eye-opening example of how extensive the far-right influence goes into these communities was the way in which doTERRA backflipped
Yeah.
on their Pete Evans exile. When
Yeah,
Evans
they
was
did.
shown to have neo-Nazi leanings, brands ran for the hills to get away from his toxic fascist image. And most brands were applauded for this. But doTERRA learned a lesson that day. Their selling ranks are full of people who are suddenly okay with neo-Nazis. And while the American organisation would have seen getting rid of Pete as being a no-brainer, it turns out they had no idea that essential oils attracted the fucking hard right. It's still perplexing. It was quite an alarming
Still
thing
perplexes
to
me
watch
too.
unfold. And we will look further into the way in which the hard right, including full-blown Nazis, have seen the wellness community as a fertile ground for new members. We'll have a look at that next week. See, the Nazi name has had a bit of a PR problem,
Just a smidge.
particularly in the
Yep.
late 1940s. But it's never too late to rebrand, and that's what they're doing. Pastel Q and a surge in confusion in the wellness community has left a gaping vacuum of ideologies. Before you can say Jewish globalists, you've got yourself a few choice candidates for the new face of neo-Nazis who look
Attractive
relatively
faces
harmless,
too.
look
Yep.
relatively harmless. And look, they're just selling really diets, and she's a nice cook. And she's a really great yoga. She takes a great yoga class, I tell you.
Yeah,
and
she's pretty hot.
Nazis. And so
Yep.
tune into next week. We're going to have a real good crack at that. We'll name names. We'll
Yeah.
name Nazi names. Tune into that next week, and we'll have a look how that's all playing out.